According to a report issued by the International Labour Organization, more than 15 million children around the world are involved in paid or unpaid domestic work outside their own homes. 10.5 million of them are either below the legal minimum working age or were working in hazardous or slave-like conditions. Jose Ramirez is with the ILO and joins us via Skype from Geneva, Switzerland. Jose, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me to your show, Debbie.
Oh, it is our pleasure, although this information is quite shocking. Just expand a little bit on what you found in this study about child labor.
Well, I think that you already put it quite well. I mean, more than 50 million children, meaning persons below the age of 18, are involved in third-party households performing domestic work. The shocking thing is two-thirds of those 15 million, 10.5 million, are in child labor situations, as you said, either because they work at ages below their minimum age or they are facing hazardous conditions of work. Out of those 15.5 million, 8 million are facing hazardous work, which means that they work on the average more than 43 hours per week. Those children, in many instances, they are kept in the homes of their employers, deprived of any contact with the outside world. They may suffer from long working hours with no rest, working on a 24/7 basis, being subject to sexual, physical, or psychological abuse, and deprived of any access to their families, siblings, or the outside world.
And Jose, we don't want to flood our viewers with a whole bunch of numbers, but a couple of other statistics that you found in your study: 6.5 million working in hazardous or slave-like conditions are 5 to 14 years old. That's mind-boggling. And 71% of those are girls. Tell me a little bit, and actually I think these numbers might be small because it's difficult to really ascertain the real situation. It's a bit of a hidden problem, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, domestic workers of all ages in general, they face statistical invisibility. It is very difficult to capture them through employment surveys, household surveys. So those estimates that we have just produced are very, very conservative estimates. In any case, the ILO estimates right now in around 52.3 million worldwide domestic workers of all ages. And you have to consider, as per the current estimates we have developed on child workers in domestic work, that almost 30% of all domestic workers worldwide are below the age of 18.
Wow, that's amazing. And is there any way to tell the proportion of these child laborers that are being forced into slave-like conditions and those who are just working for their family for economic reasons, even though the pay might be, pitifully poor?
Well, it is very difficult. It is very difficult to have sound statistics on those that may be in slavery-like situations. The ILO produced global estimates on forced laborers in 2012. We, as per our estimates, or current estimates, 20.9 million people are forced laborers, are in a slavery-like situation. Out of those 20.9 million, 5 million are below the age of 18. But unfortunately, we don't know how many of those children, those 5 million children, are in domestic work in slavery-like situations.
Yeah, these numbers sure are startling. We know that you're busy there in Geneva, Switzerland. We thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes to be with us, Jose Ramirez. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Debbie.
Joining us now here in our New York studio is Nisha Varia, and she is from the Human Rights Watch organization. Nisha, thank you very much for being here with us. Let's talk a little bit about the worst offenders. Do we find pockets of child labor around the globe, countries that are worse at this than others?
Child labor is taking place around the world, but there are definitely lots of some of the worst conditions in South Asia, in Africa, in parts of Latin America.
And Jose did talk about this just a little bit. If you can explain, what type of work are we talking about that some of these kids as young as 5 years old are being forced to do?
What we see is that these children themselves are taking care of other children. They are cleaning houses, and some of this work is quite burdensome. They might be carrying very heavy loads, for example, carrying buckets of water, working with hazardous chemicals, lifting things that are much too heavy for them to carry.
And in terms of laws, in the areas particularly that are the worst offenders, and actually I think you can probably find it throughout the world, is this a matter of inadequate laws in the respective countries or inadequate adequate international laws, or a combination of the two?
Until very recently, it was a combination of the two. 2 years ago, there was a new international treaty that was created to specifically address domestic work because it had been left out of so many both national and international laws. This treaty provides new protections to address this very invisible group of workers. But what we see is at the national level that there are huge gaps which make these children fall through the cracks.
And I'm imagining, even with this treaty, which sounds very, very encouraging, that there is the challenge of enforcement.
Absolutely, and enforcement is particularly difficult because these children are isolated, they are in private homes, and in many cases, social attitudes are such that people just don't recognize this as work, they don't see it as dangerous, so there's a lot that needs to be done just to change attitudes.
And that leads me to my next question, what can be done?
Well, first of all, there needs to be greater recognition of this problem, greater media campaigns so that when people see a young child performing housework or babysitting, they can try to identify when is that child working very long hours, when are they working at night, when might this become a dangerous situation. And also addressing the overall economic position of their families. Many children are forced into this type of hazardous work because their parents are very poor. So there needs to be a more holistic approach to fighting this problem.
And absolutely, these children often that are put into this forced labor position, it resounds throughout the rest of their life and what they're able to do.
Absolutely. Without the opportunity to continue their schooling or have good vocational training, many of them end up being domestic workers for the rest of their lives.
All right. Nisha, Varia, thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you.
Hope we've shined a good light on a very tough circumstance. Appreciate it.